therapy, psychotherapy called empathic therapy. And so I'll share a little bit about that, but as I was thinking about it, this whole, like the conference was just kind of like a small part of what I feel like the Lord's been doing in me the last couple years. So I just wanted to give like a brief, overview of that and talk a little bit about the conference. My personal story is so connected to like what I feel like the Lord wants to do with my life. I think that's probably the case with all of us. But so I just wanted to give like a brief, just a brief overview of even what led me to even desiring to go to such a conference. And I'll just be brief because I think several of you have heard me talk about this before, about myself in this way. But I went to school to get a social work degree, and I did that for 3 years, and I ended up dropping out for several reasons. But one of the reasons was because it just wasn't, I just didn't feel like the education was applicable to the way that I felt like the Lord wanted me to help people. I wasn't making good grades anyway, so. Sorry, guys. Yeah, so dropped out of school. I really felt the Lord just that He just wanted me to learn the Word, So, been here for a good long decade now, continuing to learn the Bible. And twice I've tried really hard to go back to school, and the Lord just hasn't allowed it. And the Philippines was one of those times. I'm like surrounded by, all this need, and I'm like, I just got to finish my degree so that I can have some sort of credibility here to work with these girls. And was just like, no, I need to just come back or keep learning the Word. And I think some of you remember the symposium on sex trafficking that we were going to do a couple years ago, which I was real pumped about. I felt like this is, this is it. We're going to come together as a mental health group, and we're going to figure this out, like how we're going to impact the world of mental health. And I was pregnant at the time, had Samantha, and then I got sick. Whatever happened, I got sick, and I've been dealing with that for the last couple of years. And I'm really just now, I think, over the last month or two, like turning a corner with this like weird illness, and just learning to accept it, learning that it's becoming a part of. I think I really deeply struggled with like wanting to separate it from who I am and how I could serve the Lord. And I even saw it as like an issue that would keep me from serving the Lord. And that's been one of my biggest battles over the last couple of years, is just being really angry about its presence and feeling like I couldn't serve the Lord to the capacity that I could if I had all my energy, if I didn't have to fight chronic pain or the other issues associated with it. But I'm really just getting to the point where I'm doing my best to blaze through it every day, and I've learned to listen to my body and rest when I need to rest, and realize that a lot of the things, especially mentally, that I've had to work through the last couple of years, and that I continue to try and work through daily, are literally directly connected to, I feel like, being able to help or to serve in this field of mental health. And I don't think I would have worked through them in the same way had it not been like directly impacting me every day. Some of those things being like issues associated with chronic pain, how you feel like you're going crazy, when your threshold is just pushed to the max, and you just feel like you're going to go crazy if you don't get relief. Or even trauma issues, like with the hemorrhages that I've had, and fear of death, and things like this they've really been, I think, biblically, I'm learning to even understand them as like demons, my demons that I've had to face head on, and say like, are you going to take me over, or am I going to, you know, tap into the Spirit of God and work through this in a way that will allow me to help other people work through it? Because that's always been like what drives me in those moments. Like, I have to work through this not only for my own sanity and for my kids and for my husband, but I want to help other people do it in other capacities. And if I don't work hard to do it, I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm going to be, you know, full of my own issues and unable to, like, to help people take the steps to move through trauma or fear or, you know, issues with chronic pain or whatever. So I'm really starting to, I had this hope, you know, along the way that, like, at some point I would be able to embrace it in a way where I would stop trying to get rid of it, whatever it is, and just learn that the Lord's with me. He's helping me work through it, and it's even becoming a part of my training in a way. And my training has always been with this. It's never been, it's never been mainstream. I've tried to go back to school. I've tried to, like, seek that education, and it's taken me a long time to realize, like, that my own experience in the Word of God is all that I need. And I said that, you know, years ago, but I don't think it was, like, in me. And now I would never choose. Even over the last couple of years, I've done so much research, even for my own self, and trying to, like, understand, like, certain mental illnesses and all these things. And I'm like, literally, you know, I'm just so confident. Like, the Word of God has taught me, like, all that I need to help, you know, help us transform our minds. And even for the most, like, distraught people, of course, in my heart and my mind, it's like those girls trapped in, you know, slavery. And I'm just like, you know, the Lord's helping develop this this confidence and this belief that, like the Word of God, along with some, you know, techniques of helping people navigate their mind, I'm seeing hope for the future, you know, in that way, without the mainstream education or whatever. So anyways, at some point, a year ago or so, I've had several doctors offer me, like, antipsychotic medication and stuff, because they basically got to a point where they were like, we don't know what it is, you know, you've been tested for all these things, we just think you have a mental illness of some sort. I'm like, all right, mental illness or no, like, I still have to work through it, you know. You know, there's a mind-body connection, like, there's, like, psychosomatic issues, you know, where your body can play off your mind and things like that. And I've, like, you know, because I'm always trying to figure out what it is, you know, that desire doesn't go away. But, so anyways, and being offered these drugs, you know, and wanting relief, I'm like, will they help? Would that be terrible? You know, what if I took them? Like, what if it helped? What if it just helped me, like, get back on the bandwagon of what everybody else is doing, being productive and all these things? And I think somewhere along the lines of that research, I came across this psychiatrist. His name is Peter Breggin. He's a reformed psychiatrist, and he went to Harvard. He's, like, super educated, but his whole life he's been trying to reform the system of psychiatry, which is basically just giving people drugs for mental illnesses, what they think are mental illnesses. And he's super against drugs, and he's, like, super against just the whole system of psychiatry or whatever. He's a really interesting man. So I was, like, researching him and watching videos and reading a couple of his books, and found out he had this conference, and I was like, I have to go. I want to find out. I mostly wanted to find out, like, does this approach to therapy, it's called empathic therapy, does it align biblically enough to where we could draw, you know, from some of his resources, from some of his years of experience. He's almost 80 years old, and he's been practicing, he's been doing counseling and therapy and all kinds of other stuff for, like, the last 50 years. I was like, surely he has, you know, something to offer. Yeah, so I discovered him and wanted to learn more. So let me just talk for a couple minutes about what is empathic therapy, because that's what the conference is about. Hope I'm not boring you guys.
Oh,
All right. I've been told I have like a monotone voice that I can't hear it, you know, so sometimes I'm afraid I'm boring. So I wrote these, but I'm going to read it just for sake of time. And, but I tried to like kind of sum up, like if someone was to ask me like, what is empathic therapy? You know, it's a form of psychotherapy. Psychotherapy is therapy of the mind, you know, trying to navigate the mind to deal with, you know, whatever issues people have. But what I, yeah, anyways. So if someone were to ask me, this is kind of what our conference was about and what I, just some summaries, you know, that I would pull from it. Empathic therapy is again, I wrote these, I didn't like pull these from a book. This was like my own trying to piece together things. It's a more alternative approach to therapy. It says the most important characteristic a therapist or anyone really can have is empathy. True empathy is not inherent but developed through hard work. The hard work being mostly work on yourself in order to be like a person that can really show empathy to other people. Empathy is displayed through one's ability to know themselves. Like in order to help somebody else, you know, you really have to know yourself. You have to know how you respond to things. You have to know how you're affected by things. Just, you really have to be able to know yourself if you're going to, you know, try and help someone work through some of their problems. Let's see. So empathy is displayed through one's ability to know themselves. To be genuine and fully present for another human being in need. And this is basically like the do unto others as you'd want to be done for, you know, they're the golden rule. Empathy is displayed to extending love, friendship, and guidance even in the most difficult circumstances. Empathy denies our American individualistic mindset and acknowledges the connectedness of all human beings. What I really like about this approach to therapy is that it's not like so many other like approaches to like counseling and therapy out there. It's more technique based, and it has very little to do with who you are as a person, like giving your person to another human being who's in need. And it's not even like a hierarchy, like I'm so good, I've worked through all these things, now let me help you with all your issues. There's like this working relationship of like, here's what I've learned, and it's not this like this weird hierarchy, which is kind of like in our world of like counseling and therapy. It just gets really crazy. And I always think about our my sister-in-law when I think about just the typical counselor. She's I'm sure she's good at what she does, but because we're close and we're family, I know her as a person. And, you know, my first thought is always like, I wouldn't want your advice. Really, you know, like you want to be able to see that like what that person is giving to you is something that's worked for them, you know. And yeah, so anyways, so something else about empathic therapy, it doesn't, mental illness doesn't stem from like a biological abnormality, which is something that like the whole realm of like psychiatry believes, that there's like biological imbalances and all this stuff. But yet, it says that broken relationships are what, at the core, you know, broken relationships are what affect people mentally. And when you can restore those relationships or create new relationships that are healthy, there's often like just a huge transformation in the mind of a person, and often even in their body because of the connection. There's a lot to say about this form of therapy. It was a 3-day conference. I'm still trying to understand it. It's not really like a lot of the other approaches where you can just really easily say what it is. It's more like I would say even it's just more biblical in the way that it's